1400 hours Central African time. It is exactly 2 p.m. this Thursday afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us here on Market View. As we close off this week and this afternoon, we navigate the marketplace of ideas and industries with the urgency it demands and the clarity that it deserves. First, the real seal of consumer confidence, the Consumer Choice Awards. They are back, and they are back with a bang. Over 600 nominations and 130 proudly local product lines are in the running this time around, and they are under the patronage of Her Royal Highness Princess Sakizwe. The campaign to celebrate Eswatini's finest brands is officially underway. We'll hear from the organizers and the fintech forces behind the drive to put purchasing power where it belongs, in the hands of the people. And then the view from Business Eswatini. Their CEO says this isn't just a celebration of excellence, but it's a strategic lever for local economic upliftment. Inati Dlamini, who also chairs the awards jury, unpacks the critical categories and why this initiative matters not just for business, but for national development. And in Enterprise Watch, the banking landscape is shifting. Litsikho Eswatini Bank in organization is now officially licensed by the Central Bank of Eswatini. It is a move that is signaling more competition, deeper access to finance, and a fresh test for traditional players. Dlamini returns to give us the unvarnished view on what this means for SMEs, what it means for stability, as well as the sector as a whole. And then obviously we cap it off with the market analysis with our economist, Sadala Sibia, was going to join us virtually this afternoon. We get straight into our first story. This is Business News. All right, get ready to make your voice rather heard. The Consumer Choice Awards have officially launched with over 600 nominations and more than 130 local product lines. This year promises to be bigger than ever. Presented by a peculiar people under the patronage of Her Royal Highness Princess Sakizwe, the awards celebrate the very best in local innovation, in style and in service. Voting kicks off this Tuesday, June 24th, and the patron, Princess Sakizwe, urges the Eswatini to fully participate.
It brings me great joy to witness the positive growth and progress this initiative has inspired. These awards continue to serve as a powerful platform to reward local excellence, celebrate creativity, raise visibility for Eswatini-made products, and spark meaningful consumer engagement. As voting begins, I urge every Swati to take part. Let your voice count. Please elevate the brands that best represent our beautiful kingdom. By choosing local, we choose to build a stronger economy, foster dignified livelihoods, and craft a future we can all be proud of. To our entrepreneurs, this is your moment. Let your passion shine. Let your brand speak. I encourage you to participate fully to show the nation and the world what Eswatini is made of.
Chairperson of A Peculiar People, Melusi Dlamini, says they received massive nominations.
This year, in 3 weeks, we received a total of 678 nominations, which boiled down to 130 traceable local products. These brands will now be categorized accordingly. Nominees will officially be announced ahead of the public voting launch next Tuesday.
Jody Shiba from MTN Momo gives a guide on how to vote for the different product lines.
They will visit the vote.madeineswatini.africa.com link, which is what they will actually access to actually cast their votes. Each vote will cost 50 cents, and this will be through their mobile money wallets. Customers can vote for their favorite products across the various categories. Let us remind you on the categories that they will vote for. The first one is consumer's favorite experience. The second one is the consumer's favorite apparel. The third one is the consumer's favorite drink. The fourth one is consumer's favorite taste. The fifth one is consumer's favorite home product. The sixth one is consumer's favorite health and wellness product. The seventh one is the consumer's favorite beauty product. The last but not least is the Made in Eswatini's product of the year, which is the ultimate accolade chosen by the people for the product that stands out above the rest. Voting will officially open on Tuesday, on the 24th of June 2025, and will run until the 22nd of July 2025.
The awards will be held on the 25th of next month at the Brackenhill Lodge in Mbabane, according to the chairperson of A Peculiar People, Melusi Dlamini. For Market View, Elswen Dlangamandla, Vuminkosi Nzinisa and Derek Msibi, Mbabane.
Business Eswatini says supporting local businesses is more than just a gesture of support, but is a strategic move that can play a significant role in economic growth, strengthening the economy and empowering the private sector. The chief executive made these remarks during the launch of the Consumer Choice Awards at Business Eswatini. The CE, who also serves as the chairperson of the awards jury, shared the different categories that will be adjudicated during the awards.
Now, on the jury categories, this is what we will be evaluating. So it will be primarily excellence with purpose. These categories allow us to shine a spotlight on specific qualities that drive long-term growth, impact, and global competitiveness. And this is what it will entail. The first, best youth-led brand, a nod to young entrepreneurs shaping the future of local enterprise. And the second one is best women-led brand, empowering women at the helm of exceptional brands. And the third one is best environmental sustainability, brands that put the planet first, or Mother Earth first, right? And then the fourth would be best in social impact, recognizing businesses that transform lives as well as communities. And the fifth one is best in product design and packaging, where innovation meets aesthetics and functionality. And then the sixth is best in tech and innovation, groundbreaking ideas turned into real solutions. And the seventh is best manufacturing, excellence in in-process, scale, and product quality. And lastly, best in emerging brand. That means rising stars with a potential, with a promise and a potential. These awards are a platform for motivation, mentorship, and indeed for market access. As Business Eswatini, we are very proud to stand behind efforts like these that align our mission to grow the private sector and elevate local enterprises. It is for this reason that we would like to heap accolades on the founders of A Peculiar People for their resourcefulness in coming up with a groundbreaking idea aimed at inspiring a culture of creativity and entrepreneurship in the country.
The chief executive of the Municipal Council of Mbabane, Gciniwe Fagudze, representing the host city of the awards, pledges full support for the initiative.
The Maswati have stepped up on how they package their products, how they show up. How they show up every given time you say, come and showcase your product. What we can pledge, because what we can see is we're playing host again to the actual event, is that the city of Mbabane, its citizens, on behalf of the mayor and the citizens of Mbabane, we will continue to support local. And we will be there on the 25th, and in however way we can play a role, we will do so to support this grand initiative.
Karen Dlengedva, director of Silverstone Lodge and one of last year's winners, says Eswatini products are unique and deserve strong local support.
There's so many products in Swaziland that are amazing, and it's so easy to think that we can just cross the border and get whatever we need there, but most is actually here. And I'm not from Swaziland from the beginning. I'm from Sweden. And in Sweden, there's access to a lot of things. But something we have in Swaziland that we don't have outside the borders is the beauty of being able to create your own thing. I can sit down and I can design a table. And then I go out there and I find maybe just a random person, but also a company or many companies that can help me produce this table that I want for my lodge.
A Peculiar People has shared that this year there are over 600 nominations and more than 130 local product lines. For Market View, Nelson Langamandla, Fuminko Sinzinisa and Derek Msibi, Mbabane.
Eswatini Railways Chief Executive Nixon Dlamini is the new president of the Southern Africa Railways Association, which is known as SARA. SARA is a non-profit organization established in 1996 to advocate for fair competition between rail and road transport in Southern Africa. SARA represents the interests of railways within the Southern African development community and aims to promote regional rail connectivity, operational efficiency and infrastructure development. Eswatini Railways Chief Executive takes over from Hisham Emiran, who is the president of the Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa. Dlamini was announced at a meeting held at Hilton Garden Inn in Mbabane. The position rotates annually. From our business news, straight to our market analysis with Sanelus Bia, our economist.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.za.
After 2, this is not Enterprise Watch, it is our market analysis, and Sanele Sbia is already on the line. He joins us virtually. Sanele, good afternoon to you. Perhaps just a quick roundup, if you will, when you look at this broadly tepid performance across global markets. Obviously, Asia leading with losses, Europe is trailing, and commodities and currencies showing mixed signals. What is the key takeaway for local investors here?
Thank you, Ngumalo, and good afternoon to the viewers. So what we're seeing, Ngumalo, weighing in on the markets right now is that continued tensions in the Middle East, that's between Iran and Israel. And also we're seeing, those interest rate stories are making waves across the European markets and also in the US. We've seen the Federal Reserve Chair, Jay Powell, coming out to state that they're in no hurry to actually start cutting down the rates, and that somehow sent jitters to the market. So that's what we're seeing in the US, the Dow Jones Industrial Average losing some 44 points, and the S&P 500 losing some 1.85 points, with the Nasdaq Composite relatively flat, gaining some 25.18 points. So that's purely because there are those geopolitical tensions that markets are looking for, and also the fact that we're not seeing that interest rate reprieve that we thought was going to come through. And that hawkish stance coming out of the Federal Reserve Bank saying, they're in no hurry, they're just going to watch things. And these geopolitical tensions, Mr. Ngumala, do bring about some inflation fears, because we're seeing the price of Brent crude right now on that 77 mark, from 68 or from 64 just before the 7 days of this war started. So there are those inflationary fears coming back into the markets. When you move to the European markets, again, we're seeing London losing some 1.862 points, Frankfurt losing some 76 points, and we're seeing Paris losing some 47 points. Purely because we're waiting for the Bank of London. They have actually held the interest rate steady. The European Central Bank as well is also raising those inflation fears. So markets are somehow holding back. And also do remember there are still those, what you call them, tariff fears that are rippling through the markets. And then when you move to Asia again, Mr. Nxumalo, same story there with the Nikkei losing some 396 points and the Hang Seng in Hong Kong losing some 472 points. With the mainland in Shanghai, we're seeing some losses of 26.7 points. So that's again, there is those geopolitical tensions, and we're fast approaching July 9. And the price of Brent crude is bringing about a lot of inflationary fears into the markets. South Africa as well is also taking the same leaf, losing some 140 points in today's trading session so far, to sit back on that 94,852 volumes in that also trade index there. Again, we're worried about the war in Iraq. And I mean, if you look at the news right now, President Trump will be making an announcement shortly regarding the stance of America in this war, whether America is going to join in and support Israel, or America is going to give some aid to Israel. So we are keenly waiting to see what that address will be and what the decision will be. And markets will definitely react to that one, Mr. Nxumalo. And then when we move into Eswatini, we've not seen any movements. When you look at gold, we're seeing gold coming back to the 3,392.70 dollars per ounce, and again, some marginal losses there, but the numbers are still signaling the fact that there is a lot of risk in markets, and investors do want to find a bit of a safe haven. When you look into the Brent crude, the price of Brent crude, Mr. Nxumalo, is now hovering around 77.40 per barrel. So it seems to be finding a new equilibrium there, at least for this week and the next week, until we get a clearer stance of what's going to happen in that war. We might likely see Brent crude hitting that 80 mark, depending on what America decides to do. And there are worries in markets that we might be going back to that $90 per barrel, which again is going to be real in terms of inflation fears across all markets. When you look into the currency, Mr. Nxumalo, because of the hedging that is now happening, we're seeing monies shift from equities going into currencies and also into gold. People are just looking for those safe havens to invest in while we are watching to see how this entire war plays out. We are sitting at that 18.07 against the dollar, sitting at 20.74 against the euro, and also losing slightly against the Japanese yen. We're sitting at 8.7 cents per yen. So that's purely because of these geopolitical tensions, Mr. Nxumalo, and the uncertainty it brings into the trajectory of monetary policy across the globe, because it does bring about and it stokes inflation fears. If we see the future price of Brent crude staying above that 75,000 mark, so we might see central banks across the globe reversing their downward trajectory in interest rate cuts. Thank you, Mr. Nxumalo.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. And that was our economist, Sanila Spear, weighing in on the numbers of the day which define the market. Now, from that, straight into how the business Eswatini weighs in to the introduction of Letshego Bank, which has been introduced by the central bank. Okay, the Central Bank of Eswatini, CBE, has announced its decision to grant a provisional license to a new entrant in the banking sector, Letshego Eswatini Bank in Organization, LEB, currently operating as Letshego Financial Services Eswatini. Now, the central bank is on a drive to attract more banks into the country, but what does this mean for the local business community? Today, we sit down with Business Eswatini's Chief Executive, Inathi Dlamini, who shares his insights on these latest developments.
CEO, welcome to Market View. Thank you for joining us today. We have seen the Central Bank of Eswatini, Mr. Dlamini, granting a provisional license to a new entrant in the banking space, to Letshego. So we basically want to know your reaction as the business community to the move by the central bank. We know that the central bank has said it is looking to grant more of such licenses to more banks in the country.
Okay, first of all, as the business Eswatini private sector of this kingdom, we note that the central bank has issued a license to Letshego. First of all, Letshego is well known to us. They've been in the country for over 20 years now. And I've been, tracking their asset book. It's been growing phenomenally. Over 3 billion malangeni already, which means it's quite big. So I think they were just ideal poised at this time to convert into a banking institution. So we just want to, firstly, to congratulate them on being granted the banking license, which then will bring the number of banks in this country maybe to four. Probably 5 with maybe Eswatini Building Society, who have also applied for a license to convert. In fact, we had expected that SBS, Eswatini Building Society, would be the first one to be granted a banking license. So, so it's something that I believe is still in the pipeline. But we congratulate them for that. What's going to be the impact? The impact of this can be quite profound. Letshego has been known to have strengths in very, very not so traditional markets. In this country, we have what you call the unbanked masses, and then you have what you call the underbanked. And I remember very well, even companies like Momo tried to bring those into the net, but still MTN doesn't offer banking services. And I'm hoping that Letshego, with their strength and their footprint in the country, will then explore and exploit that huge niche market of underbanked and unbanked masses. And if they do that and do that successfully, then we can say now the country, in terms of financial inclusiveness, we have reached the pinnacle. That's what we are worried about, the inclusivity in financial service, inclusivity in terms of access to finance or financial products. And I'm hoping that Letshego will meet or rather fill that void as they come in.
This is obviously a great move by the Central Bank of Eswatini. When I saw the post yesterday morning, I was excited myself because I thought of financial inclusion. But I want to understand from you, what do you think this means, especially for small and medium enterprises in the country? I know that maybe Business Eswatini is a big entity that handles large organizations, but I also know that you have small and medium enterprises here.
In fact, by the way, we have more small businesses under this roof than we have big companies. I think the smallest business we have, BE, they hired only 2 people. That's quite small. That's very, very, very small. So we are well au fait with the challenges of the small businessman, as it were, and that's why we are hoping, and we are also acutely aware that most traditional banks tend to be risk averse, extremely, and they can afford that because it's a huge market, and I'm hoping that Letshego, I think Letchego's risk appetite, based on what we have seen, is slightly higher than the traditional banks, which means they're willing to take more risk than the other banks. And the sector that I'm talking about now, for small businesses, it's sort of a risky sector, as it were. and it needs a bank that will have the commensurate amount of risk appetite in order to explore and exploit it to the level that we wish that it will exploit. Structurally, the financial sector itself will not change as a result of a new entrant per se. But in terms of service delivery, financial service delivery, you will see the impact, particularly on small businesses.
I know, CEO, that before the central bank made this move, a lot of research was done. I think I read the first write-up that they did when they were telling the nation about this move to introduce more banks in the country. I think it was months ago, but I want to understand from Business Eswatini, Kwekuthi, what safeguards or policies would you like to see in place to maintain a level playing field for all the financial institutions in the country?
We don't believe too much in regulation, because we think regulation tends to stifle competitiveness. Besides that, we feel that already the field is already level anyway. And as such, let the best bank win out there. And like I say, we believe there is so much, there has been always space for a new entrant like Lecheco. Probably there is even space for another bank to come in. Bringing the total maybe to 6 commercial banks in this country. Like I said, whoever wins are the consumers themselves, which means access to finance will improve dramatically because of a new entrant who's focusing on markets that have hitherto been ignored. That's one thing that we're excited about. And I think Lecheco will do that. And by the way, while we think also confident about them, you must remember that all of 11 countries in Africa, or even more. And also remember that they've converted 6 of those institutions now already into banking institutions. So they bring a wealth of banking experience from their African operations, bringing them into Eswatini, converting into a bank. So I think it just works well for them.
Appreciating everything that you have said, CEO, in this conversation, my mind quickly jumps to issues of unemployment. Eswatini having such a small population, I'm thinking if more banks are allowed in the country, will we be able to handle that as a nation? Because most of Emaswat are unemployed, especially the young people. If we have more banks, won't there be saturation in this financial space? Because bakhona nema cooperatives, tikhona naletinye tinhlangano lesetibolekisa ngemali, uma ubuka kutawuhamba kanjani vele lapho?
That's a professional view that you've mentioned, because if there are too many institutions who provide funding and probably provide them to the same market, and then there might end up being a saturation, right? But on this one, we're talking about deposit-taking institutions, right? I am aware that you have some of these stokvels, we have some of these pension funds who have begun also to provide facilities, in fact, the structured finance facilities and investments. They are doing that because there was a shortage or a gap in the market anyway, because that's not their traditional business. They usually, these people invest in equities. They invest in businesses, not loaning money to institutions, and they've started doing that. And we have 1.2 million people, and we have big banks, most of which are concentrating on bigger businesses because they are keenly aware of the risk factor on the smaller businesses. In fact, that's why the central bank now they have a scheme, a small enterprise guarantee scheme, because they were saying there is a big gap here. Can I guarantee half of those facilities so that you can begin providing facilities to smaller businesses? And as you are already well aware, the scheme is not working very, very well because banks now still insist, I want collateral for the other 50%. And then comes a new entrant like Checo with a risk appetite that's much higher than the traditional banks. All of a sudden, you begin to fill that gap on provision of facilities to smaller businesses. That's what we hope it will achieve by their entry into this market. It won't saturate anything. Like I said, I think we have room for one more institution without causing any saturation at all.
CEO, thank you so much for joining us on Market View. You are highlighting that this move by the central bank is especially important because it will promote financial inclusion. Iphindza iqinisekise ukuthi nanawa emaswati mhlawumbe lete timali letinkhulu nawo sekatawukhona ukuthi kube khona la ngena khona khona ekuboleka khona ekusitakala khona. Siyabonga kakhulu CEO kuba nathi elihlelweni lamuhla.
32 minutes after 2, we have eaten time that is not ours. Thank you for staying with us. Have yourselves a good weekend. Bye-bye.
The Israeli army says it also struck a nuclear weapons development site in Natanz and a nuclear reactor in Arak. Iranian state